This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing. I am your host, Lauren Gray. Hopefully be joined very soon by some of my other co-hosts, since I have to go on stage at the ALHOA, Asian American Hotels Operator Ownership Association, in just a few minutes. But I want to make sure we get our show started because we, if anything, are not consistent. With that being said, it has been an interesting week here in Houston. First, we had the HITEC, which was all week long through to yesterday. And then we had HSMAI's ROC, which is Revenue Optimization Conference, and that started on Wednesday all day. Some interesting booths, some interesting softwares, some interesting services, some interesting stuff. HITEC is always great about that. And as we've talked on shows prior to this, as a prelude to this one, a lot of it has to do with the softwares that are being introduced as to whether or not they're new and innovative or whether they're supportive and adaptive. There's lots of that. And we also nostalgically went back to the time when HITEC was a lot about technology associated with things like laundry drying systems and engineering systems and phone systems and to still some extent TV systems. They've changed so much since then as to what you can and cannot do. The service providers like LodgeNet and so forth have been pushed aside now for the more dramatic, I can do it myself platforms that are customized and adaptable, like you see with Marriott running with Netflix and so forth. So all of those are out in market as it is. With that being said, there was a lot of up-and-coming ones. We saw some really interesting ones that I hope with the other co-hosts that may hopefully join us, that they can talk to, which is a lot of the innovative ones that are about connectivity and integration between multiple platforms. There's so many different platforms in market right now that are operating different functions and different services, but they're not talking to other services and other software platforms. And because of that, you have this disparity of communication, this singular universal interface that doesn't exist. So a lot of the software companies that are on market now are trying to emulate the ability to connect those things so that you have a one-stop source, a point of truth, as it were, as to being able to use all these different forms and formats, much like CRM systems and PMS systems and POS systems and so forth. I see that Holly is hopefully joining us, which is awesome. Because Holly, I got to get on stage, and I said, and Ed and Robert, hey, how are you? Hey, there you go. I got you. Hey, I got you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can't hear you.
You can't hear me? I can hear you. That's weird. Hold on. I'm sure that I'm not using use.
Nope.
I'm using the Bluetooth, but I'll do the internal microphone. How's that?
It was me.
Oh, it was you? Okay. I'm going back to
can you hear me?
Just to be safe. Okay. Can you still hear me? Yeah, you can still hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Thank you for showing up because I got to go on stage in a few minutes.
Oh my God, there's stress in your life. Except I'm not playing the show by myself. Where are those other people?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Robert and Ed both said, oh, I'll be there, man. Don't you worry. You know, and I'm like, okay, good. That's great. And I'm like, and as I start the show, I'm like, okay, so where are you, dudes? I was talking a little bit about HSMAI stuff.
So where are you going? What are you doing on stage in a few minutes?
I am talking about leadership and technology and the convergence of the two and the usability of the two. And I'm going to get slightly esoteric on the fact that leadership is not management, management is not leadership, and that technology isn't a crux nor a direction, but rather a tool and a service. So with that, I had the, there's Ed. See, we can't talk bad about Ed now because he's finally showing up. And Mr. Stewart, the cavalry has arrived.
Phew, that was scary.
You also can't talk badly about Ed because what's there to say?
We only have 2 hours.
Okay. Hey, Mr. Stewart. Because you came to my rescue, I'm not going to say anything bad. Even if I did have a list that I keep secret in a vault.
Are you at a karaoke bar or something? What's the background situation here going on?
Green screen woman.
Yeah, Holly. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a green screen set up that I'm not using.
Is that your kitchen in the background? What am I saying? I can see past your green screen.
It is my kitchen. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I moved my office.
Now keep in mind. Remember when I went through my green screen phase? I had a green screen behind the back that Ed, you gave me grief for weeks because I left it up.
Yep.
So now Holly is in the world of green screen. You appreciate leaving it up.
And Lauren's doing the Fear Factor style, where it's the camera mounted to your chest as you're running, and boogers are coming down and stuff.
What a classy show we have.
It is classy. And you know, it's funny. Someone gave me feedback on the show.
I'm holding
saying
it in my hand in the hallway just before I get introduced.
they wish we would cut the banter down in the beginning and get into it faster. Yeah, obviously,
I
I'm
totally
listening.
agree.
Yeah. We probably should. Are we really going to? Probably not.
Stuart,
Hey, Stuart,
you sound
you're
like you're in another
really
world.
quiet. Oh, you gotta put your
Why?
mic down.
That better?
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah,
I learned how to
All
use
right.
technology this week.
we're all new. High tech.
Yeah.
So,
So,
all right. So, where
let's
were
get to
we?
it. How was
Yeah.
High
There it is. Yeah. Hey,
So,
guys, I got.
yep, he's gone.
Tech?
So-
I
So-
have to go because I actually literally got to go on stage. So I'm going to leave it to you guys. Thank you so much for the show. I'll
Good
talk
luck,
to you.
Lauren.
Thanks,
Bye,
Lauren.
Lauren.
See ya.
So, I think we should start with what was the coolest thing you saw at
Bye,
High Tech
guys.
or-
See you, Lauren.
Bye, Lauren.
Bye, Lauren. What was the coolest thing we saw where?
At High Tech or Rock.
Holly. Holly was the coolest thing I saw.
I'm
And-
gonna have to agree with that. Holly was the
And-
coolest thing.
I got
Yeah,
to learn
you
her
did.
intricate backstory. It was really interesting. So that was
Poor
the coolest.
Stuart got the life of Holly.
I still haven't gotten that. I want that at
It
some
was
point.
awesome.
I want to hear this.
She was a brat in her previous careers, man. It was awesome.
I was
Oh, that
not a brat. He keeps
Yeah,
saying
it's
I was high maintenance, a brat. I just, had a select amount of talent and
Yeah.
demanded,
Yeah, she acted, honestly, Ed, it sounds like in her career she's acted like I would expect you to act because she knows her value and she tells everyone her value. If they don't believe her, then she's out of there and goes find something else and someone else
I know.
evaluates her.
Quite
It's
honestly,
great.
why I'm an entrepreneur is
Yeah,
because no one would hire me.
unhireable, yeah.
Because I'd be the worst employee.
I think we'd all agree with that.
Yeah, I got no.
Actually, you know
Respect
what's
there.
fun is, Stuart, is you. So I was having dinner with, or drinks and snacks with Dan Waxman, and he's like, "This is much
Yeah.
better than where my next meeting was going to be. Can we just invite them here?" And I'm like, "Well, it depends who you're meeting with." And he's like, "Holly." And a few others, and I was like, well then, yeah. He's like, yeah, but I don't have Holly's cell phone number. I'm like, well, I do. I'll just text her. So then I got to sit in on the next meeting, which was a brainstorming session on something for marketing, where I got to throw in what I thought, which I love doing that.
Wow.
I gotta
Ed
tell you,
invited to a brainstorm session is a man.
We
That's
will-
Pandora's box right there.
no, we are always inviting Ed. He really did come up with something. So what we were trying to come up with was a tagline to promote the CHDM, the Certified Hotel Digital Marketer.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I had just finished teaching the class. And when I said to the class, I had a bunch of people from Tambourine, and then I had a whole bunch of revenue managers in the class. And I said, why are you here? Why are you taking the CHDM? And the revenue manager said, so that I can argue better with the digital marketers. So I had to have some
Crush the
credibility.
dreams of your colleague.
Yeah, and
PhD.
so
Crush your colleagues' dreams.
that was all that Ed needed.
Prove who's smarter. Yeah.
It was
No,
actually a blast. We had
The
Isaac
one I
there
thought
with
was
two roads.
the one I liked that I came up with the best was Expedia doesn't want you certified. CHDM.
I thought that was very good. You actually came up with, was it yours that said make digital marketing your bitch? Are we allowed to say
Yes.
that?
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
that.
because I was spitballing. I was like, don't be the last one. Because all your customers are going to get stolen. It's,
That's funny.
all of the fun stuff that you could do. And then one of them was like, because I guess Cornell has a competitive offering.
Yes.
So I started playing on that. Better and cheaper than Cornell.
Really clever.
You could use a picture of Robert and say, if you go to Cornell, you end up like this guy. And then
Yeah.
Don't end up
Holly,
like this.
or you can come here and end up like this gal.
Yeah, that would be a good one
Yeah,
too. That
simple
just-
choice.
So back to the topic at hand. Other than us, what was the coolest thing you saw? Because I didn't go to high tech except for 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. I felt like there's a lot of vendors trying to do the same thing this year. And really, I saw two different trends. One was, which we've seen for the last few years, which is how to improve guest experience through technology. So there's a lot of people creating kind of middleware, either communication tools or like visual mapping of the property, or the 20X stuff was pretty interesting. There was some neat little ideas there. So there was that. There was the guest experience technology, but then a whole lot of people are trying to solve the data problems in the industry, which is probably some of the biggest challenges we have. A lot of people creating, streams of data, two-way interfaces between PMSs and vendors or hotels and distribution, wherever it is. So I felt like there was at least half a dozen, if not more, companies trying to do something really similar on the data side.
Which is nice because it's long overdue. And the fact that there's multiple companies, I think, is great news, because that means it will become competitive. It will become, something that we see installed. Because that's the thing you always fear when something really, really new comes out that's not been in the space, is that's pretty hard to do. That's like, it takes a while to build up adoption. And so as, when you're in a dependency on like a data layer as a service, you have a chicken and egg scenario where, they're not going to be able to get certain connections without compelling partners.
Right.
But it's hard to get compelling partners if you don't have certain connections.
Yep.
So the fact that there's multiple companies, that kind of spreads out the risk a bit. From the partner side. Yeah, for sure. And they're all in their infancy, and they're all trying to do slightly different things with the data. But overall, I felt like it was positive for the industry. Happy was one that seems to be doing a good job. Snapshot came out and announced that they were kind of going in that direction. I think Navis are doing some interesting stuff with data now, where they're trying to get a holistic single truth of the guest. Which
really, Navis is. That's good news.
Yeah, so there's a lot of folks trying to do it. I think SiteMinder came out with something related to central data as well. So a lot of that stuff.
Well, and the interesting thing is, so I didn't see Snapshot's announcement, which I wish I had, because everyone who had an announcement about it, I went and spoke to them because I wanted to see what angle were they going at. Right. So I spoke to the SiteMinder folks, because my big question for them was, is this for your existing client base, or can this easily be deployed into a net new? And are you going to allow hotels to exist that don't use SiteMinder's booking engine, that don't use SiteMinder's res stuff, that doesn't use SiteMinder's channel management stuff? Because if the answer was no, I was going to be like, well, then you're really not doing anything. But they actually said this is their target for this is, single purpose use data layer stuff.
Yeah,
they're taking it seriously. So I got to speak to their chief technology officer and their CEO. It's a benefit of being a fierce competitor previously with them, is they'll actually talk to me because they think I have something to offer potentially. And it was, it was interesting, and they were quite honest about where they're at. I mean, one of the leg up I think they have over some of the other entrants is they do have a pretty wide install as a company.
When they have the integrations already, they've already integrated with just about every major PMS. So that's going to be the biggest barrier for a lot of these folks.
Yeah, but one of the challenges that they do have, and they were very upfront about, which is a lot of their PMS connections are only integrated to the scope that they've used it, which means it's reservations. It's not everything. So, I mean, listen, it's good to know, because yes, they're going to come out the field with dozens of PMS connections,
but limited in scope.
But it's also easier to expand a connection than it is to convince a PMS for a net.
See, they made a rookie mistake. See, we very early on realized that, because we integrate with a ton of PMSs, and we realized, okay, there's different specs for different things. So when we go to a PMS, rather than saying, we're just integrating this piece like the booking engine, we'll say, oh, we need all this stuff because our mobile app has booking, and it has the analytics dashboard, and it has email components. So we're getting the full spec first time and integrating to all of it. So we don't have to go back and recertify and do all that stuff.
Nice. So you
saved us a ton.
You lied to them to get the full information.
No, we just integrate our toughest product, which is the fullest scope, that does have all that stuff. you know. So
Smart
it's
way
just
to do
one
it.
little. Even if we just have a client that wants the booking engine, we'll say, "Hey, client, tell them you want the app too," because then we can integrate everything. And
Yeah,
it usually
future
works.
proof. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that entrance, and then the other thing I thought was interesting is Pegasus. Any of you talked to Pegasus?
I did not.
I did.
Yeah. So listen, for those of you who maybe haven't been in this industry and in the battlefield of the distribution side of the industry, there was a heyday when it was fierce competition between Pegasus, Synixis, and iHotelier. And during that period of time, there was like a war going on between those three that was driving innovation. And then Pegasus kind of crumbled. And that left us with, and listen, there are great platforms out there, but for certain customers, you need a true, you know, like if you're going to be Wyndham looking at a CRS, you couldn't go to someone who has less than 2,000 or 3,000 hotels on their platform because it's a different animal. The scale of the platforms that can do 20, 30,000 hotels on them have a completely different scale. And the problem is there's only been 2 of them for a while.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to say Pegasus is back. Like they, you know, I've been watching them closely because they've been full of promises for the last 10 years. And haven't fulfilled any of them. And I've been keeping a close eye because I knew they'd probably come back. I'm going to say it now. They're back. Their platform looks really good. It's out. It's not like, you know,
Not vaporware.
It's not vaporware. Exactly. Which is great news for our industry because it's going to bring innovation back at that level. Like that's going to require TravelClick to up their game and Sabre to up their game. Which will then put downward pressure on the next tier of provider, which are those 5,000 to 10,000 hotel CRS platforms.
Yeah.
What did you think, Robert?
Didn't Darlene go to?
Darlene is now their
marketing
CMO, head of marketing. Now.
Yeah, head of marketing. I don't know the exact title. Yeah. What did you think, Robert, when you saw them?
The only thing, no, I agree. I think they've got a shot. I mean, you know, in reality, though, it's tricky. And sorry, today's talk is sponsored by Ludens. But no, I think they've got acquiring clients is a really, really long sales cycle for CRSs, right?
Yep.
So that's going to be the determinant, like how long because again, for a lot of these big guys, you have to have kind of your proof of concept. You go, see, here's the really big monster who's doing great. And we migrated them well. Everything was well managed. And look at this, which I think a lot of people on Synixis side were really thinking, boy, with Wyndham going over there, this could be a nightmare. And everything I understand is that migration went pretty well. Now, a lot of that may have been Tammy Peter.
It totally was Tammy Peter.
So, yeah. So you got to take that into consideration. But again, that's going to be a little tricky. The one thing, honestly, I didn't like that much was they were really focused on their AI-driven profile. And I told them, I said, don't focus on that. Get the underlying accurate data. Do the boring stuff well.
Get the user interface frictionless, you know.
But I think they'll figure that out quickly. I think what they're trying to do is lead with their differentiators.
Right.
But here's the thing: there are a lot of customers that are now through the cycle of, you know, they were either on Synixis and moved to iHotelier, or were on iHotelier and have moved to Synixis, and have a desire to move again.
We had a lot of folks come to our booth that are on Synixis that are not happy. We had a lot this week.
Yep.
And listen, it's not for any other reason except for, listen, there are some fundamental differences between Synixis and iHotelier. You know, and it's the differences that may make it to whether or not you want to be there. But also historically, customers move every certain amount of time for one reason or another. The problem is
a larger number than most groups would hope who make CRSs, but yes.
but the challenge is like, when you only have, when you're above a certain scale, and again, this is what I'm talking to. I'm talking to, like when Fairmont Raffles Swiss Hotel moved to Synixis, back in the day, there weren't, they had three choices. It was back then in that move, it was Synixis, Pegasus, and then iHotelier was the up and comer who started to breach up into that space. They're on a core now. It's a different story, but I'm talking groups of that size and that architecture and that complexity. Yeah. They've only had two choices for a while now. So having a third choice for them, because a CTO of a group that size is really putting their neck on the line to go down to the next tier, right?
The next tier is very interesting, though.
There's a lot of really good innovation in the next tier, but the challenge is as a publicly traded hotel company, saying that you're on what Wall Street would consider a startup, is challenging, right? It's challenging to go to Wall Street with that.
And Amadeus is, reportedly going to be done with the IHG platform.
I heard.
Probably next January, something like. I mean, maybe the end of this year, but my guess is it'll be.
But I also heard there's been some rollout of it already, which
they've done some.
Yeah, and that it's gone fairly well.
Yeah, but the really small guy, I think they may have done Kimpton maybe on it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know who it was, but I was told that there's been some rollout and it's functional. Like
right. Yeah.
That's a huge step. Like just that.
That is.
Because man, building a architecture of that size from scratch, like there's a huge chasm between having it built out and having any deployment whatsoever. Like that's a much bigger chasm than taking it from a small deployment to a medium deployment.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, and then another thing that was interesting to look at, actually, I'm looking up the HITECH app, is the number of people who were there in the booths from Amadeus, massive booth, tons of people. I mean, they are all in on this hotel play. And again, they've got lots of other stuff, certainly with their group sales stuff. But Travelport, nobody. I don't think there was one person from Travelport.
No, you're right.
Sabre had maybe 4.
Travelport was too busy working on their blockchain. I mean, that was their big announcement, right? They're doing the blockchain distribution.
Yeah. Yep, I included that in the list of topics. There were there were 3 of them.
Yeah, each one of their employees is a node on the distributed network, so they had to be mining.
Yeah, that was.
They couldn't bring their trade show servers for their demo because all their servers are currently nodes mining for their blockchain.
They may have said, "Screw this hotel stuff. We're going to be miners." Yeah.
That's right.
They're the 7 dwarfs of the hospitality industry now.
Yeah. But again, I think it'll be. Actually, I'm meeting with TravelClick next week in New York for their little analyst days, so I'll get a little bit more insight on what's new and going on.
Did you see their announcement about their loyalty product?
I didn't. Actually.
Yeah. So it looks like. So I've known that they've been spending a lot in R&D, more than they've ever spent in a single year, I think, in their company's history. And it seems like the early fruits of that are the integration of the ZDirect with iHotelier, which has now led to this loyalty program where not only can they track and add points, guests can. From what I read, guests can actually make bookings with points.
Oh, that's good. Do a points and mile. That's the Switchfly nice seats.
So if you're a brand that's using the suite of TravelClick, I'm guessing you have to have it all. Right. That your guests who are on your loyalty platform will actually be able to make bookings where they're paying. And I read it was even partially. They can do a partial payment with their loyalty points. That's actually that has huge implications because I can't think of. I mean, a lot of the loyalty programs are standalone, and the booking engines are completely separate. I mean, that's a.
Sure.
I have to imagine
the big guys who've done it through Switchfly or
Right.
iSeats. I think they're the only kind of two games in town who can.
Well, I think Travel
handle it.
Tripper's been working on something too
Yeah.
for casino customers.
Yeah, well, they have their Caesars deal, right? That's a big deal.
Well, and
So-
El Dorado, and I know that's not
that's
as
right,
big,
El Dorado. Yeah,
but they have all of El Dorado resorts.
right.
Wait,
You know,
what's
and-
Travel Tripper doing with Caesars Rewards?
They're going to be the CRS. Oh no, not with the rewards, not with Total Rewards. But they will be integrating with it because they're going to be the Caesars CRS.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, so I thought that was interesting that TravelClick made that announcement. And it seems like they made the announcement on the last day of High Tech, which I thought was a little strange and kind of a bummer because I would have liked to have talked to them.
I missed
it
it.
was weird timing.
Yeah, I missed it totally.
Yeah. So, but whatever. I mean, they're a huge company. I'm sure like it's hard to get some of the stuff out. So I thought that was interesting, even though it didn't really happen at High Tech.
I want to hear Robert found probably the most innovative technology at the whole show.
Oh, it real time pest monitoring. You know, you don't an often overlooked functionality that really.
I mean,
wait a minute.
That's
What is
cool.
it?
What?
What is it? What do you mean?
Well, I didn't have a chance to stop by the booth because my schedule was filled. I mean, there was a booth. I was going to take a picture of it. Stuart, did you?
Well, no, I
pass
didn't.
by?
But picture the problem, Holly, right? Let's paint the picture, right? You want to know where all the critters are in your building at all times, in real time. And this problem that's plagued humanity for centuries is now being resolved.
And this is
real-time
not just
pest monitoring.
vermin. This is not just vermin or rodents. This handles insects.
Yeah.
Your entire spectrum of pests. The entire. Yeah.
I mean, technically, you could use it to
species-
monitor unwanted guests. I mean, if you really wanted to.
That's right.
I'm going to need to know more about this.
I mean, here's the thing. That's actually really awesome, but that's one of those products that's hard to buy because then you have to accept that you really have a problem that you can't seem to solve, right? Like, because here's how I kind of look at it.
1012 has had large rats for 6 weeks. Oh my God!
Where are they gone?
Rats of unusual size.
I kind of feel like to make the decision to go to that product means you've made the decision that you can't solve the problem, right? Like that.
So we figured out the ROI, how you drive ROI, right?
Now, if you're at a hotel in New York City, you can't solve the problem.
That's true.
You can't. You trap each individual pest, and then you relocate it to the next, and then you train them to come out at the right time. You wait until a VIP guest is at the other hotel, and then you release them. Unbeknownst to the other
Release
competitor.
the rats.
That's right. Unleash the Kraken.
No, you could do so much. So I mean, this could be one of these humane pest things, right? Where you don't exterminate them, you capture them and release them, and that's what you start with.
Here's the toughest part. So Stuart, was giving out the study at High Tech about what we found on how hotels make decisions and stuff. And one of the key ways that we found
I was really hoping for a PDF of that, which has been.
You'll get one. We're doing a version 2.
times.
We're getting more input from vendors, and then we're gonna.
But one of the key elements of that is how hotels make decisions, and it's from other hotels. And so that means case studies are hugely important in marketing your product. Here's the problem. If I'm a hotel who has to buy a technology to track the pests in my building, I'm not going to be overly interested in being a case study unless the answer is I no longer have to use the product because I have completely eradicated all living things that don't pay to be in my building.
No, I disagree. You put it online and it's a proof source. Online reviews. You put this screen online that shows there are no active rodents currently in my hotel. I'm staying there.
You know what? I think all you do is you unplug it and then put up that page.
Yeah,
No.
that's true. No
And say,
rodent
yeah, no,
activity
we have-
since
we have no
470
history.
days.
We have no recorded history of it. Yes.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
No, what this platform was, I didn't talk to them. I did take a quick look. It's basically an incident tracker. It's
Right.
for some reason
Oh.
you could track
They've-
anything
it
for
could be
a wide
any- yeah.
variety of different
Could be
ways,
for
but they have
maintenance, could be
decided
asset
yeah.
management, but no, they're focused in on pests.
A single
Yeah.
purpose. Yes.
But they
Uh,
did what everyone in the industry does, is take some buzz terms, right? Like real time, but it's really
Yeah.
not real time
Blockchain
at all.
tracking.
Right.
It's
There's
real
probably
time-
AI in there.
real
and
time
there's a VR
reporting.
version.
Real-time reporting of something that is
Manually
periodically or maybe
Yeah.
batch reported. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Yeah, it's basically a logging system. But
Oh, I'm sad. I thought it was,
no,
Like,
they
I thought
put
it was
individual
like-
trackers on each.
See, I'll be honest
Yeah.
with you. When you said what this was, I was picturing some sonar technology that's
Right.
tracking
Yeah.
movement
Oh, yeah.
inside of walls. And,
Like-
and
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
well, that's where my head went. Like, that's pretty cool.
Holly thought they were chipping all of the rats, which would just be so cool.
Honestly,
It's like the pets.
until Stuart took it to insects, I'm sitting here going, so what are they doing? Putting RFID tags on the rats? Like,
They name each individual one, you know?
Well, and actually, if you with the miniaturization now and the exoskeleton of those roaches, it's really they stay in it much better. Yeah, they were falling off before, and yeah,
Yeah, it's nanotechnology.
the lack of a neck was a real problem on the
Right,
Thorax.
right.
So,
With the collar around.
All right.
all right. How about you, Holly? Did you see anything?
No, I literally went to say happy birthday to Eric Dorr for 5 minutes at High Tech. I was at Rock the rest of the time. I will say there was lots of good stuff I thought at Rock. Did anybody else go to Rock? Any of you three?
I did not. I
No.
heard mixed reactions. I heard a few people say very kind of
Yeah, I did
rudimentary
too.
level of education, like nothing really innovative, very baseline.
So I actually came today to talk about that.
Oh.
So I had multiple clients of mine that I had met with where I asked them, I'm like, so how's the show? And I got the same feedback from multiple people, which was that the educational side this year was depressing. The tone was very defeatist, but with no real solutions to offer up. Whereas they felt in previous years that they got a lot out of education and the meetings were okay. This year, they actually felt like they got more education out of their meetings, which makes sense because most vendors have gone to a education first content marketing type approach to sales. But I actually got this from multiple hotel groups. So mostly who I met with this year and why I came to High Tech is I had multiple hotel groups ask to meet with me. And these are top people from within these groups that actually all gave me the same feedback, which was the education was almost suicidal in feeling. Like these people are so down and so beat, but offered up really no solution.
I think, though, I understand why they would say that because the opening was this economist who I got there a little bit late, so I don't know who it was. But yeah, at the end of his session, I thought, I'm going to be homeless in a year. Like we're all going to be homeless in a year. And I mean, really, it was bleak and accurate. I mean, potentially accurate, but everything was 20% chance of this, 25% chance of that. But that was the opening to the day. And then you had the asset managers.
Well, if you missed it, was he talking about when the downturn comes, it's going to be ugly? Basically, was that kind of the theme?
No. Actually, it really wasn't. It wasn't. It was all of the factors that could contribute to trouble for not just our industry, but the economy in general. I mean, it was a very broad picture, which I really appreciated.
Oh yeah,
I thought it was a fantastic way to open it. However, it was scary. It was absolutely scary.
Oh, well,
I was scared.
I had a meeting with one of the equity analysts that I work with, and that quite honestly, that was our conclusion as well. Actually, not any sort of timing of, oh my gosh, watch out for the third quarter, this, anything pending, but the raw fundamentals of, the PE ratios in the stock market are at all-time highs, right? The market is generally, considering looking at history, radically overvalued. Now, it could stay that way, and that's fine, but just over history, that has not been the case. The other thing is we started, digging into, the tracking that I do of, I've tracked STR's weekly hotel stats since January of 2006, right? So I got, dozen years of stuff on here, and the record normally at week 30 of the year, which falls kind of the peak summer. The peak occupancy was 79% in 2015. It was lower in 16, lower in 17. So the peaks are coming off, and I don't have any evidence of this. My theory is that that's like a Airbnb or something. When you get lots of demand, you've got this dynamic supply come in, and it'll take off the peak from the
but here's
the
the
hotel
thing.
group.
I mean, economic fundamentals say that any pullback we should expect should be an equal and opposite reaction to the pace of which growth has happened.
Right.
So, I mean, if you look
true.
at the last financial crisis, that was directly equal to the massive, aggressive economic growth in a very short time period. The dot-com bubble was a direct reaction to the massive, aggressive change in where economy was coming from. What kind of gives me, and I'm usually the pessimist, but what kind of gives me hope that, the next economic downturn we're going to see is probably going to be a meandering kind of dip with some up, is because we have not been on fire. The economy did not come roaring back from the financial crisis.
No, it had very, very slow and measured. Yeah.
Every year incrementally has gotten a bit better, a bit better, a bit better. So barring, another, and a lot of the analysts I've been reading are actually saying that the next trigger to a global economic downturn is going to be from outside the U.S. economy. That I kind of believe, because there are economies outside the U.S. that have had very explosive growth without a lot of fundamental underlying piece, but I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of looking at it saying, sure, are we probably at the top? On this cycle, we've probably seen the top, but I haven't found anything that makes me go, oh man, that bottom is way down there.
We're beginning to see a couple of markets. Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, we're beginning to see a couple of markets that have been on a forward upward trajectory for really since 2009. Beginning to soften. This is the first year in some beach destinations that as a market, occupancy is down, demand is down, search volume is down. ADR has been pushed probably a little too aggressively over the last 5 or 10 years, so that could be a part of it. But we're beginning to be a little cautious with some of our destinations that we're in.
Yeah, well, and when you look at 2008, the hotel industry was actually coming off a peak early in the year. It was kind of peaked in December 2007, January, and it was not growing. It was actually shrinking. But then you had the disruption of of the real estate markets, and then all of a sudden, all the junk mortgages and pow, right? And that's generally how it is. You've got this weird disruption of a terrorist act, who knows if there's some cyber thing or something like that, which those are kind of the triggers that you, of course, can never.
But here's the thing: if you look at the impact of the terrorist acts, those tend to recover pretty fast,
pretty quick. Yeah,
right. They generally do. Yeah.
Once the dust settles and whatever happens, they tend to recover. The ones I'm always concerned with are the dot-com bubble type of things. Where aspects of the economy just get decimated and never come back because it's actually a fundamental shift.
Been disrupted. Oh yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Disruption based, because that's the stuff that leaves people permanently screwed up, right? Like the mortgage crisis stuff that screwed up people.
Oh yeah,
and it fundamentally changed. Even the American dream. There are less people who have buying a home on the chart of, you know, like their milestones they want to achieve. That
Right.
screws things up. Like that is a new dynamic.
Well,
You
and
know,
a
so
lot of millennials who graduated right in 2008 or something like that.
Right.
Not great timing. They don't have a dream of buying homes and things like that. And look at this, all of a sudden you can rent. You don't need to have a car. You know, they're saddled actually with record student debt, which is a problem.
Right.
That's not
And
so good.
relatively lower
But
income
it's like,
too.
yeah, but it's wind up being they're going asset light.
Yeah.
Right? They're renting, they don't own cars and things like that. But again, that going asset light is a problem for the housing industry and all
Right.
these sorts. You know, again, it's going from individual home ownership to maybe you do need housing units, and now it's multifamily and things like that. So lots of interesting shifts. So now I'm not predicting it, but yeah.
This economist was also talking a lot about external threats in terms of, for example, some repercussions from the current trade deals happening that are going on. And, you know, the cyber threat, I was a little bit astounded. He had tracked some of the power grid. I was kind of unsettled by that. So then you went from that into the asset manager discussion. Remember, we had that at Digital. You had a bunch of a panel of asset managers. I was actually a little bit encouraged by that because for the first time ever, I heard an asset manager talk about. I thought a lot of it was really good. They were talking about how they would like revenue managers to communicate with asset managers, which is a big issue for these folks. And I actually heard an asset manager talk about their goal is really the long run. And I don't hear that a lot. They really want you to have a long-term strategy.
And it has to be now because supply growth is under 2%. Demand growth is kind of under 2%. Sort of thing. So it isn't going to be let's go build these massive properties and churn them. It's kind of, hey, how do we take these? And again, I always thought the greatest term was the hotel industry is radically under demolished was the big problem. And so I think that is really where they need to turn to is how do you get rid of some of the real junk? But again, at this peak, where you're sitting there going, hey, you know, the occupancies, you know, year round are at, 65, 66, 67, 68. That's pretty good. These things are churning cash flows and things like that. Kind of the industry needs a downturn for some of these guys to go, wow, rip out the old stuff and now let's redo it as well.
Right, because I know quite a few hotel complexes that right now the people who own it, they're just waiting for a cooling period so they can finally rebuild it, but they can't justify taking inventory offline.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Stuart, in your market, there's a massive complex that was kind of built up with the idea of completely leveling it. And rebuilding it to a mega complex, but they can't justify taking the inventory offline.
Right. Yeah, it's too much revenue. Yeah, but if they don't, they're going to end up. Myrtle Beach as a market is, it's on the decline in terms of quality. The smart folks are doing that, whether it's floor by floor or, just taking the opportunities they can in the off season. But there's a lot of aging models.
A huge opportunity, short window here for real-time pest monitoring.
Huge opportunity.
So one of the things that surprised me a little bit, and I think I just might have a skewed view of things maybe, but a couple of the asset manager owner folks were talking about they're still measuring RevPAR index. And I think, of course you have to measure that, but I think, they were saying that was, sort of the most critical for them to this revenue management audience. And I think, are you crazy? Like, if you're not looking at the cost of the business at this point, it doesn't matter. Like, there's so much deception growing RevPAR index that you're replacing high cost business so that your index looks better. Like, really? And I was surprised to hear that. And then I thought, am I just so warped on the other side of the acquisition cost?
Yeah, but you're misunderstanding the difference between a real estate point of view and an operating business concern point of view. So real estate point of view,
comps? They want comps.
And the only consistent comp number they have is that index. And again, this is from a real estate asset point of view. So, so the cost of bringing in demand is a ongoing business concern issue, not a real estate asset point of view. Because if it falls apart, it falls apart for everyone in real estate, right? Like and that's how they're looking at it. So this is where and I talk about this a lot, like an asset-driven hotel is a very different hotel than a hospitality-driven hotel. And as long as you know who you are, you can completely do fine. The asset managers that are talking to you about RevPAR Index, they know who they are. They are an asset-driven hotel organization.
They've leased out their F&B space. They've done all sorts of, because again, it's just like commercial real estate. What do? What's the cost per square foot? I don't know what you're going to do inside of there. You could got a wide range of things, but they want to look at what's the cost per square foot of this stuff to go do it. And for RevPAR, it gets really complicated when you have banquet space and food and beverage and all this stuff. But they've got STR. They've got all those star reports, and they can focus on RevPAR.
But it's literally insignificant. I mean, literally.
Oh, I wouldn't say it's insignificant. It's the top.
If you want to grow your RevPAR share, it's the easiest thing in the world. You just spend a fortune to get more business.
Right, but Holly, so here's the thing. And again, this is real estate asset versus ongoing business concern. Ongoing business concern, rising cost of bringing that business across the line means much thinner margins to operate with. It's a problem employing, all of that. But here's the thing. As a piece of real estate, a functioning piece of real estate, the ceiling of what the value can be means that, hey, if this person doesn't survive in the ongoing business concern in this, someone still is going to come up thinking that they can do better. I will have a different tenant in here. I will have a different business in here. But from a real estate asset point of view, this is what I can do. And I'll give you an extreme example. So Hard Rock was going to build a massive residential / vacation / hotel complex in Daytona. And as they were doing it, the thing that ultimately stopped them from being able to develop that project is there's a ceiling to how much you can charge in Daytona. No matter how nice you are, there is a price ceiling in that market. And so it doesn't matter how good you are, how cheap it is to get business across. Like they could not make the real estate development make sense. Because margin, like they're past margin. It's you would need margin to be 100% for them to be able to build this based on the price ceiling. So they backed out of the development and actually did a franchise agreement with a hotel remodel that was initially remodeling to be a Westin, but felt like they needed a different brand to survive at the top. This is now the top hotel in Daytona from a price point standpoint. So, well, it's not completely irrelevant. And is it misguided and could you do a better job? Sure. But as a real estate asset point of view, it's still a relevant tracking number.
I think it's troubling in the same way that, remember, in 2008, you're making mortgage loans to people who are never going to be able to pay them. So from a big picture standpoint, your sales are great, but it's going to crash. And I think it's the same thing for the hotel industry. I think it depends on how the asset company is leveraging debt. I mean, that's the thing.
Absolutely.
You're thinking in too simple of an economic term on the complexity of where this squeezes you. And listen, and I'm not saying that for any reason except for I am so critical of asset companies trying to be hospitality companies and hospitality companies trying to be asset companies. But in all actuality, the thing you have a problem with is those people knowing what matters to them and completely dividing off the stuff that gets them into trouble, which is trying to be a hospitality company.
But isn't there another way
Sure.
to do it? I mean, isn't
Yeah.
there another
Well,
index?
Not for comps though, because you don't have the underlying. I mean, I'll give you a great example, and this is way back, and I've got to get your bingo cards with Four Seasons in the 1980s, because as their corporate director, marketing planning, RevPAR was not a term in the industry, really, right? Everybody was still, and it's still a problem. I was talking to a guy at High Tech. Still, there is this, comparison of how big is your ADR versus my ADR, sort of thing, right? But
we were having that talk at dinner the first night.
Yeah,
remember?
we called it achieved revenue yield. Right, was what we called it. Four Seasons we got the Four Seasons Beverly Hills on Doheny Drive, that deal, because it was going to be a Meridian, and we said, this is what we do in terms of RevPAR. That's what Meridian does during RevPAR. You really want to spend $68 million and get that when we can give you this? And from that point on, that is how we pushed it. And got a hell of a lot of great deals and just kind of ate up the market at the top end for those developers, right? I mean, because, and again, what were we doing from marketing planning standpoint? We were looking at GoPAR, right? Way back in the 80s. And amazingly, a lot of hotel groups don't do that. But again, if you've got 6,000 hotels, you're asset light, you don't have the underlying, profit numbers, right?
Right.
They can't measure, they can't manage by GoPAR. They should. They'll come out with some stuff when they're developing it as a prototype, and you should be able to do whatever. But that is not a KPI for a major hotel brand, right? So, and you can't compare it against other products, right? Because again, they've got 50,000 square feet of meeting space. Those guys have 3 restaurants. Those guys have a bunch of recreation and golf, right? They come down to the rooms. It's easy. You can compare it, right? It's not right, but it's how the industry works. It's not right. Sophisticated.
It's not right.
It's not right. It's not.
It will lead to our.
But they don't have access to accurate information to make the other. Digging down into that is what HVS and a bunch of these guys and a lot, CBREs and all those guys do, right?
And that's their competitive advantage.
Even though the way Calibri is doing this, I think would be a good index for them.
Right, but the problem is
they're trying to.
As in anything. Let's take this to something that Stuart can chime in on too, because he's being too quiet.
I know.
I'm learning. Right. That's good.
Web analytics.
Mm-hmm. I was going to make the analogy.
You don't use web analytics for anything except for tracking trends, which then means like the level of its accuracy is only important to how consistent its accuracy is. Like if the accuracy is inconsistent, then that's problematic in web analytics. Otherwise, you're using it as a trend tracker, which means if it's wrong, it's okay as long as it's wrong consistently. Then
there's a difference between accuracy and precision, right? It doesn't have to be precise as long as it's accurate. Constantly.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say, Holly, is those guys that are overinflating the RevPAR index probably aren't just looking at that. That may be the most important, but they're looking at it in context with other KPIs, whether that's cost per acquisition or whatever it is. We have a lot of different indicators. Same with website, right? If you just looked at, say, conversion rate and you didn't parlay that with, say, traffic, conversion rate doesn't really mean anything on its own, because you could just send a small amount of traffic that's highly qualified and beat last year, but it means you cut off new business sources, things like that. So I think looking at data in context.
So no one's making a decision off a single metric.
Right. Here are asset managers communicating to revenue managers. We care about RevPAR, which to me is asking for trouble. We care about RevPAR index, which to me is asking for trouble.
Sure. But this is part of the complexity of this industry that's always existed. Absolutely. This is the only industry I know of where a single business has 3 different entities potentially with completely different agendas on what matters to them, with their fingers in the pie. I mean, like that's it. Like this is what makes the
And
hotel
tech
industry.
systems
And content.
not
Yeah, I mean,
communicating.
think about what you were saying earlier in your class, where the revenue managers were saying, "I'm doing this class so I can stick it to the marketing team."
I think they stick it.
In every other industry, the people controlling the price and the people doing the marketing are the same team. It's one.
Yeah, it's called e-commerce in
Right.
every other industry.
Right.
Yep.
Hotels,
Yeah.
the only ones where there's this weird, really weird.
Stuart
combative-
and I were saying this to Bob at HSMAI. He came by to say hi and stuff, and he's like, "So what do you think?" And I was like, "I'd love to see you bring some retail people to show them that
Yep.
e-commerce in retail is revenue and marketing and merchandising and like all the things that we have currently split up and siloed and specialized. Like in all other industries, there are perfect examples of that is literally the same human being. Like it's the same. And we
Wow.
thought, and so what we were saying to him is it'd be interesting to take a very successful example of that and bring it to HSMAI, show it like this is how it's done in other industries.
We have to do that. We absolutely have to do that.
Yep.
It actually sort of reminded me then. So later they did sort of a cool thing for a giant meeting. You have 600 and almost 700 people at this meeting. They did something called the Great Debate, and they use the software that I love, Mentimeter. Have you participated with that? It's well done. So they posed two questions. One is, are revenue managers going to be extinct because of AI, or will they last forever? And so you had to vote. And then there was this discussion.
I hate our industry. I hate it.
I really do. Can we just be positive for once? How about are revenue managers going to conquer the world because of AI? Why
Are we
does
gonna be
everything
better at
How can AI help you do that?
Yeah.
Right.
How
Why
much
does it
better
have to
can we
be-
do our job more efficiently
Because-
because of AI?
I actually thought it was, and actually I probably phrased it wrong. I don't think it was so
No, you
negative.
probably didn't.
Whoever wrote it down phrased it wrong in the first.
No, really. They usually put thought into that. And it was sort of cool. It
What
just
keeps
it
you
went on
up at
too long. But what I did see is that
You're fine.
revenue managers don't necessarily, what I wanted to say, and I should have, is if you had asked reservations managers 15 years ago if they'd be extinct, I'm sure they would also have said no. They evolved into
Yeah, and by the way, can you name anything in this industry that's gone extinct? Because it's always something. It's travel agents are gone, tour operators are gone,
Oh, I go on.
OTAs are
Positivity
gone.
is extinct for sure.
reservations managers.
Positivity.
Reservations managers.
I know multiple reservations managers.
There's tons of those.
Yeah,
Their responsibilities have probably evolved.
Changed. Yeah.
yeah.
They still
I
exist.
know none. I know call center directors. I don't know any reservations managers. Single property. Single property.
Oh, now you're like,
Okay. Well,
okay.
you have cluster. You certainly
no.
have cluster. You've got all
15 years
sorts.
ago, every property had a reservations manager.
Yes, and they did the job of a revenue manager.
And
That's
they
the
all had-
thing. It evolved.
So all they
It
did
doesn't
was-
And they all had general. They all had general managers too. Yeah,
And they
you
didn't
got
have
a
an online-
cluster general manager.
Right.
Right.
But they're gone.
And their
It's
PMSs didn't
evolved.
communicate with each other.
No,
at one
no,
point. I
but-
mean,
They were
But
doing
again,
a lot
it-
of manual
it
stuff
changed.
that's automated
Right.
today. But then
Right.
they're also doing
Which
stuff
is
in
what
And the
addition.
call
AI
center-
reduced the revenue management position.
No, the technology changed though, because now reservations, you want reservations that get kicked over to the call center. You've got you've got all sorts of dynamic call handling stuff where you can have at-home agents handle this and all the distribution.
right, but do you know, I can't even think of anyone who lost their job because it was fundamentally eliminated. Like,
Like,
and
they evolved, right? They learned new skills and applied them, and
Right.
probably got paid
Right.
more for more complex skills because the
Right.
monkey stuff they were doing is now automated. And you,
right.
But the role doesn't exist, and it's dramatically
It does
changed,
exist.
which is
It's
a good
different.
thing.
Just
I'm
different.
not saying it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like
But
saying a journalist job doesn't exist because they don't write on a newspaper anymore; they write on a website. And,
Right.
it's just changed. What they're doing
Yeah.
is
But this is where I just want this industry to stop being so black and white in their comments. Like blockchain is going to disrupt OTAs.
Well, no,
No, they're
what this was doing, I thought it was cool. What I was doing was saying, take a stand and defend it.
Yeah.
So everybody had to vote, and you had to go on one side of the room or the other, and then they had different people defending their position. It was really
So
So did-
someone,
I was well done.
wait.
I
How big
heard
was the side that said revenue managers were dead because of AI?
It was smaller.
Okay. Did anyone feel like their
I
job
was on
would
it.
change because of AI? I'd be interested in talking to those people.
What was that?
Did anyone feel like their job would not change because of AI at all?
No.
The AI
No,
wouldn't.
that was pretty universal.
Because those would be the ones who would die.
Yeah, those will
would
be
be
out
the
of
only
jobs.
one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the way you go extinct. Is
Right.
by
And then the second question you would have enjoyed later in the afternoon, they had the same format, but it was, is loyalty dead or loyalty
Right.
lives forever?
Yeah,
And
but
that
it's the
was-
same kind
and
of
again,
cluster.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Does
like
it have
these
to
are
be dead?
Do we-
I
Stop
actually,
killing things, hospitality
Okay.
industry.
Okay, so
feedback
first
I-
of all, have you
Actually,
ever put on a conference, Ed?
yes.
You have to do these.
Wait.
first.
Hold on. Yes,
Who,
I
what?
did.
What?
It was called SMART. It was the Strategic
Of course.
Marketing Alliance of Revenue Technologies. It was Easy Old Ideas, Springer Miller, and Synixis.
Mhm.
And it was hugely successful.
What topics did you talk about? I bet
It was
everyone
actually,
had a 10 Beatty subject line.
no, it
which I
was
think is-
really, this was, it was really interesting because the reason we did it was because we saw a need for customers to understand that we're not just developing what you're asking for, we're actually working together as a group to re-envision how the future of distribution and pricing and all of that was going to be. And then the most popular part of the panel were the business development, like the people who are designing product together of all the companies, open session for all the customers to just Q&A with us. You can go as deep as you want. So first of all, what surprised me was we had over 390 hoteliers show up, which blew my mind because I thought it was going to be regional and we were going to throw a couple of them. People flew in as far as Australia to Florida to do this.
Well, they had Ed St. Andre was going to be there. I mean, it's
back
a
then
no-brainer.
I had no name.
So today, if you did, it would probably be 190 people. Showed up.
No, 5 or 6 at best. But I will say, like, we wanted it to be an open forum to also just show them that, you know, beyond the things you're asking today, we're actually trying to think about things that you're not asking about, stuff that we see because we are vendors. And we were working together. All of us were working together on some pretty interesting things. And so the plan was to continue doing it. The challenge was figuring out where the next one was going to be. But I did. I have thrown an event like this.
Where
and
was it? Where's the first one?
It was in Orlando because I was throwing it. So, and it was we threw it at one of Kessler's properties.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because we were going to start in Florida, then go do a West Coast one, and on and on.
So
I'm going to defend Holly,
you
though.
couldn't
I'm
find
going
a
to
place?
defend Holly because when we did a couple, we called it New South Digital Marketing. We did it 2 years in a row. And we had 300, 400 attendees, but every session, like you said, Holly, was clickbaity kind of, you know, you want to draw people and shock people. And
Right.
just like our podcast, I already named, we haven't even recorded it yet. We're doing an episode today on the High Tech Recap. I could call it High Tech Recap, right? But if I call it Secrets from High Tech 2018 Revealed, it's going to get way more clicks.
Right.
So that's what I'm going to do.
It spurs more conversation. And that's what they
But
were
here's
trying to do.
the difference, Stuart. At least yours has a positive tone to it. That there were secrets
I don't
of
know.
High Tech 2018 for you to reveal.
I might be
Not
talking
the-
shit about a couple of vendors.
Why don't you go ahead and name it? Why
Wait.
the revenue manager's dead and everyone's dead and there's murder everywhere. This is like
I've done that before, too.
the Edgar Allan Poe of industry.
So, wait a second,
Right.
Ed. Your criticism of Rock, this is from the guy who enjoys telling children there is no Santa.
I never
It's too
tell
depressing.
What?
My
Never-
theory about you is you take
What is this
joy
all
in
about?
that.
You
Holly
never
said-
tell children there is no. Wait. On the Santa topic, I want to be clear. You never tell children there is no Santa. You tell them once they stop believing in Santa, they get no gifts from Santa.
Right. You either can or can't. You're right.
Exactly.
So no, listen, there's a fundamental difference when someone asks me for business advice on a business idea that has challenges. I will tell them the challenges that their business idea has, and I'm forthcoming with that. And that's Holly mistakes that for being pessimistic. I'm more looking at it as, listen, people did that for me at Easy Yield. It saved me a lot of mistakes.
Right.
You know, and I'm also not one to tell you that I think something's a good idea if I don't think it's a good idea.
Right.
Now, at the same time, if I think what you're doing is a good idea, I'm all about it. The challenge is Holly, you've just been exposed to me being exposed to a lot of bad ideas. And that's really...
I think what's good about you is that you're a critical thinker. I just think it's a little bit funny that your criticism of Rock is that it was negative. I didn't really think it was negative. I think it might have been more cautionary, which I think we need. Times are good. Let's not.
Yeah, but can we say
yeah.
the death of destruction? Like, can we talk about the massive opportunity of revenue managers who are adopting AI into their day and how it fundamentally will put them at a positive edge over ones who don't? But do we have to talk about death?
AI, that's exactly what they were saying.
Nothing dies in this industry. Half the vendors on High-Tech's floor is proof that nothing dies in this industry.
They get 100 clients that keep on to them for like 50 years. They don't innovate.
And eventually sell their company to some sort of group that acquires
the travel click, and then they do
just the maintenance, sort of maintenance over and over. So.
Right. I mean,
the negatives I heard from Rock, quite honestly, were one, it wasn't as solutions oriented, right? It was kind of like, here are the problems. And this was the same thing that they said about High-Tech
educational stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All the education stuff was, here's the stuff that's wrong, but not like here are real things that are happening to solve these, and things that are innovative and disruptive and that sort of thing. It was more like, look, all the problems, you need to do something about it.
Yep.
The other one is that on the debate thing, they really didn't like having people get up and move. Apparently they had people move onto sides of the rooms, and they did for the first one. The second one they didn't, right? Because the person I was talking to about it was
saying, moving 700 people in a room that's meant to hold
wasted time. Yeah,
it's a waste of time. It's like, seriously, like there's polling technology.
What they said was have the people at the table on different sides so they can be arguing amongst themselves instead of they're all just standing over.
You're gonna see this at Digital, I hope, but we're definitely gonna tweak it.
And then
I love the format.
Specific to Rock, I will also say was there was a strong comment of it was jam-packed with content, with like not a lot of opportunity for kind of breaks to think about it and maybe talk amongst yourselves about what was just covered. It was literally, I kept hearing fire hose. It was nothing but a fire hose. But it was a fire hose that the feedback was, it was a fire hose with no solutions. Like it was just a fire hose of, here's your problems. And this isn't just Rock. This was just the educational
track at High-Tech as well. Exactly.
Yep. And I didn't attend any of these, so I'm not speaking from my point of view of it.
Yep.
I'm telling you the feedback I got from some of the
multiple
respected groups of hotels that generally historically have been hard to get onto the trade show floor because they enjoyed the education so much.
Right.
So take it as I'm the reporter, not the source of the data.
Yeah. Mine is anecdotal too, just from hearsay. Yeah.
I attended all of the educational stuff, and
you're the most positive one of them.
You are.
Yeah. And no, I concur. It was a little bit different this year, certainly, but I mean, it was good. I mean,
well. And actually, the format for that debate, and I've done a couple of those, which have been great. Where I did it for a Rich Siegel's CIO summit with going down where he did pros and cons, and actually it was two speakers. We went through like 10 different items and did that kind of point counterpoint thing. But what I always wanted to do, what I've always joked with Tim was, I wanted to go, and actually I'd do it with any of you, is go set up a format. We're the two speakers. at the time you come up with a topic, you flip a coin, and then you argue whatever side you get assigned.
That would be good. You know who I'd like to see in a live debate would be Max from Hebs, and I forget the gentleman's name from is it Hotel Tech News?
Yes, the two that are constantly.
Yeah,
dude, the rebuttal to Max. So Max wrote the article on how amazing blockchain is going to revolutionize the industry, which was, I don't know.
Max wrote it's all BS.
Oh yeah, that's right. He wrote it was BS, and there was some holes in his argument, right? And then
absolutely.
And then the other guy came back with, well, let's be a little more realistic like this. But the analogy he gave him of like people that were saying the internet wasn't going to be a thing when they were on dial-up, I loved it. It was really good.
Yeah.
So I want to see those guys in a cage match. It would be great.
No,
actually, the cage match is a great thing.
I forget where the guy's from, but if you follow, I'm connected to both of them on LinkedIn. It's this guy named Ed. I don't know what he does, but he writes a lot about like revenue management.
Ed Watkins.
Ed Watkins. Man, go on LinkedIn and look at any post Ed Watkins has ever posted on LinkedIn. And the very first comment is a critical comment from Max about how he's completely wrong. Those two need to be put up on a stage and given like round robin topics.
Well, Ed's more of a reporter.
Ed has like some good stuff he's put out. And Max has amazing arguments on why he's wrong. And just witnessing that mental exercise, you can actually pick up like some fundamentals of probably what's really right, which is the middle between the two extremes. If you want entertainment, you put those two in a ring.
When I first joined the whole HSMAI Digital Marketing Council, I was new to this world. My first call, you have 20 people on a conference call. Max was very much a part of the board then.
Oh, yeah.
And I never knew Max before. I mean, my first call, I hung up and I called Julie and I was like, oh, I don't think this is for me. Like, I don't think I can ever do this. I thought he was insane. And then, of course, as you get to know him, he is insane, but
incredibly intelligent. He's incredibly intelligent, but I mean, he has a method to getting his points across, and it's not clickbaity. It's deep. It's deep explanation of his point of view, and passionate.
So passionate.
Right.
And he has more time now because he's chairman of, or I think is he chairman of Next Guest? I'm not sure, but he's not CEO anymore.
Yeah, he's retired out of the day-to-day. And I'll tell you what. Right. My God, it's the happiest Max I've ever seen. Like
exactly.
No, seriously, I saw him at High Tech and just smiling, had a positive tone in his voice. I think he's excited to be at this phase.
How have we never had Max on this show?
No, I don't think any of us have asked.
Yeah, we have to. I'm calling him this week. He has to be on this show.
Oh, sure.
Let's get him on.
That's fine. That's good.
Let's get on and talk about blockchain.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be right there supporting him, though. I'm not going to lie.
And I'll be the best thing ever to see.
You know what? We could get, except we only have six windows. I can get Doug will do it. No, I know Doug really well.
I do too. Doug Rice. Yeah. I think if we're going to do this, though, I think we should each be forced to pick out of a hat like who we end up with.
Oh, absolutely.
And we have to stick to that. I'll even stick to it. If I get pro blockchain, I will stick to it. I won't be sarcastic, I promise.
We should do a segment of the actually, you know what? We should do a segment of the show because I was talking to Lauren about once we go through the the third year, right? In 6 more shows, we're going to be into our third year. Lauren's going to change up some format type stuff. We're going to have a little bit more structure, and I think we should have a little thing. Yeah,
seriously?
I know. He has a
if anything, the show has become less structured as every episode comes. We didn't cover a single topic last week that we set out to cover.
Right, not one.
Not one.
I went 2 hours. Yeah.
But anyway, no, I think that would be great. We can pick 2 participants at random, Well, I don't think you can have people who don't want to talk about stuff. But anyway, here's the topic. You're pro, you're con, go.
I
I'm
would
giving-
love it. I
Yeah.
do it sometimes when Tim's on the show. Just for
Absolutely. No, that's what I always did with Tim is the perfect.
Right.
I swear I've had a conversation with Ed, like one-on-one, where he's taken a position and then he gets on the show and Tim says the same position, so Ed automatically flips to the
Absolutely.
other side just
Absolutely.
to spar. It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
It is.
So, as a contrarian?
No.
Who would have believed it, huh?
I just think this show would be boring if all we
No.
did was agree
Always
with
agree,
each other.
yeah.
And since I really have nothing to lose being on either side of an issue, I'll be the one who flips just to make it an interesting conversation.
Let's go full Socratic method on this show. There we go. We'll
Okay.
talk.
Right.
Go for it. So,
We should incorporate those some audience polling.
We would need a live audience in order to do that.
you have a dead audience.
Can we get some chatbots? Maybe Google
Audiences
Alexa.
are dead.
Alexa?
2018.
I mean, if I
AI
have
killed
to, I
audience.
could have my staff watch live. And
Holly, the
They're sick of
problem
you
is
already. Ed.
we
I
used
know.
to have reservation managers. They're all dead. The revenue
They're all
managers will be dead soon.
Yeah. So the audience is going to be dead.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's our problem. They keep
I'd invite
dying.
travel agents, but they died
They're
off.
dead.
Remember?
The OTAs will be dead. Blockchain
Remember
will
when
kill them
Booking
soon.
Engine was going to kill call centers?
Yeah. I think search engines have died 12 times. So
Yeah.
keep coming back.
SEO is dead.
Mhm.
Oh, SEO is so dead.
That was one of our episodes. It was search engines are dead again. Is
Again.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Right.
anyone else have anything interesting that came from the show?
I told a lot of the PMS companies, some of which we already integrate with, some we're trying to integrate with. It was interesting. You can gauge the popularity of the PMSs at the time by if just walking by and seeing how many people throughout the show go into those. And I would say Opera was pretty quiet. The Oracle booth was pretty quiet most of the show.
You know what was interesting? I missed the Oracle booth. I didn't see it. I literally did not walk past it.
It
until
wasn't in the best
Thursday.
location.
It
but
was
close to
because
the
of, it was
big pillar
in a
thing.
good location, but it was the way they structured the other booths.
Yeah.
There wasn't like a major aisle that went to it. It was kind of
Yeah.
behind a couple, and it was
But-
like, well, there they are. I was thinking they didn't exhibit. That was so bizarre.
So, do we want to?
It's like, oh, there it is.
Robin of the rumors we heard at High Tech. I thought that
Rumors.
was fun.
Oh yeah, go.
Or just one specifically about Robert Cole, or just
No.
Okay.
So here were the big rumors I heard multiple times. So I'm only going to bring up the ones I heard multiple times. One
Okay.
was that Duetto was buying Rainmaker.
Okay.
A dozen different people
Yeah.
asked
Said
me
what?
if I heard that Duetto was buying Rainmaker.
That makes sense. Duetto needs clients and large clients
Yep.
badly,
Yep.
and
And
they have
they're
a
called
history.
Rainmaker.
They have a history in casino. That was where they were
Yep.
birthed, and they do because I think Duetto's largest clients are what Malia, NH, Red Lion, right?
Right.
And
Right.
they need some big heavy hitters to.
And it does.
Again,
it
they
makes
have a massive amount of investment, and they've had that backing has been more than patient, and because I think I don't know how many total properties they have, but I don't think they're over 2,000, right? I think they're probably in
I
the
don't know.
1,200, 1,500
I
range.
don't know them
So-
well enough.
Yeah.
But it's
which is
been,
also why I don't
it's
mind.
been-
I don't mind perpetrating or
And you
putting out
prefaced
the
it.
rumor.
You said it's a total rumor, right? So this.
Right.
but that
so
makes
that was
sense. I
one.
would say that is a plausible rumor.
Yeah.
One that I
So,
had not
okay.
heard before this show, that after noodling on it a bit, actually I can justify it making good business sense, was Sabre buying Opera away from Oracle.
No chance. Not a chance.
None, huh?
I don't think so.
I will say this: if something doesn't change, Opera, although it has tens of thousands of properties, is hemorrhaging majorly. Every PMS company I talked to, they said they were balls to the wall the whole show talking to Opera clients that wanted to switch.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
single PMS
Oh
company.
no, they've got a problem. Oracle
Major problem.
migrating those guys to the cloud has been a problem.
Well,
And when you introduce a change to that, that is an opportunity for everybody else, and everybody.
It's not just that
yeah,
too. It's
about it.
support. Like the same complaint I heard again and again was a lack of support.
But,
and here's the thing.
same complaint of Sabre. Both all the Sabre clients,
but
everybody's looking at them on the CRS side.
Here's the thing about it, though. For Sabre, let's talk about why it makes sense for Sabre. So Sabre has a PMS product that they
bought tactically to get Wyndham. Yes.
Right. And so if they're really looking at how do you get to the next level, there's no real acquisition Sabre can make in the CRS space now that makes sense. Because everything now is a straight customer buy, just like Trust was. They took none of the IT from Trust. They literally acquired them, ported the customers over. They got a few really good employees out of it, but ultimately there was no IP that seems to have added any value to it.
But Trust had a better platform for luxury.
They really
now again, the overall scalability. We're talking feature functionality, not necessarily.
Right. So then, who can they buy that has a dual upside tick for them? So first of all, Sabre buying Oracle means the Opera CRS can instantly become Synixis on a lot of really interesting brands that are running the Opera CRS. That's kind of cool.
Well, there isn't an Opera CRS really.
Well,
they don't really have multi-property, search capability. They've got some Kluge. They've got some Kluge stuff that lets you shop across individual instances of a hotel. It's not a CRS.
So there's that.
And I believe the Oracle guys are and should be out there shopping for a CRS to figure out how to bring that in. But again, their problems are how do they get this stuff onto the cloud? Right.
And so then now talk about things Synixis can do to appease the gripes of Oracle's challenges with Opera. First thing they can do is that the Synixis two-way connectivity to Opera no longer has the heavy annual fee on it.
None of these guys want to reduce their revenues.
Sabre could in this case. Sabre could in this case because it would actually end up stemming the bleeding of the customer base that the other PMSs are alleging is happening for Opera. It would actually potentially move iHotelier customers that have Opera PMSs. It would potentially move them to Synixis, which means it would be a growth. Like from a strategic standpoint, eliminating that annual license, which I think is down to like $5,000 a year for the license pack for that connection, makes a lot of sense for Synixis to really like put some walls up.
Sabre can't manage that level. Quite honestly, having worked there and having authored their M&A plan in 1997, 20 years ago, which is what they're still trying to do. 1998, I was on the team that evaluated Sabre's acquisition of Micros Fidelio, which was $500 million. And they should have done it because if Sabre had gotten their hands on the point of sale stuff, that would have been earth shaking, right? But they had 800 million in cash. They couldn't cope with the point of sale. It was was a decision. And again, the strategy back then was simple. We were given a goal of running a business that was $60 million a year. We had to come up with something that was $500 million a year in revenues at 25% margins. We found a business that was $680 million a year at 27% margins. It was not really acquire Hyatt's Unix platform for Central Res, but to basically integrate with that, which provides huge benefits to the host, Sabre and the GDS, and to acquire at that time, it wound up being HIS because they were borderline bankrupt doing $50 million a year, and you could pick it up for $25 to $30 million. And so 3 investment profiles, $30 million, $60 million, $90 million. This is the end of the story that I was telling you on a Friday or on Monday, Holly, for the big miss. And they passed. The CEO passed because in 1992, he was the CFO of AMR, who wound up writing off $125 million when AMR blew it on developing the confirmed project, which was Hilton and Marriott and Budget Rent-A-Car on the same CRS that never birthed, right?
Yep.
So since that strategy has always lived. It wound up being, okay, let's get Synixis, which was not the same as getting Hyatt's platform at all.
Right.
And no PMS. And now they've done kind of 20 years later, they did the tech, or 15 years later. They
So
did
for
the
all
tech.
you know, Robert,
It's cool.
they're still executing on that 1998 plan.
They
and
are
that's-
actually.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
at
that,
least as of
if they're
a couple of years ago,
executing
they
on
still had it. The
1998
guys, yeah.
then that could mean that they
That
could be
train was-
buying Opera.
They've got a 20-year-old
Oracle-
memo that just fell on someone's desk from Robert Cole.
Oracle acquired Micros Fidelio for 5.5, I think it was 5.5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
The hotel component, certainly the point of sale stuff is amazing. The point of sale stuff in the cloud for Oracle is freaking awesome.
Right.
And I don't use awesome loosely.
So
Amazing
sold-
stuff.
if
So
they
if they can do that, Oracle can kill people, but they've got a huge problem of how do they get those 30,000 folks onto the cloud,
right.
achieving that without feeding everybody, because these guys who are looking at it are in the CRS space. I was talking to guys, what they want to do, they want every Synixis client and every TravelClick client, because they're all dissatisfied, and there are lots of them. Right?
And I will say this: I spoke with Oracle this year, and they've always been really resistant to integrators. They've made it difficult, expensive. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through. You have to have clients.
That's Opera.
Like,
That's been Opera.
Opera has always been like that. This year, for the first time, I walked into the booth and they were friendly and helpful and wanting to learn about our products and wanting to integrate. So,
and that's because they have
shifted.
Mitzner. They have guys like Mitzner who used to be at Synixis and stuff like that. That they've picked up. And again, Sabre and Synixis have had a huge.
You have to go, Holly.
I have a 10 o'clock call.
All right, Holly.
Bye, Holly.
If people want to find you, where can they find you?
Remember, I don't want them to find me.
Oh.
I'm kidding.
All right. So you hear that, folks? Holly does not want to talk to you.
That's right.
She doesn't have her green screen function, so she can pretend to be somewhere else. Or
Right.
she's down after going to rock and everything. She's in a bunker, an underground bunker, waiting for death and destruction to occur on the surface.
No,
All right.
back to my coding. I have to finish my app this week.
All right.
Holly at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com. Thanks. It was so much fun seeing all you guys this week.
It was great seeing
we
you.
have fun, Holly.
Yeah, good seeing you too.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
No. Sabre would be a great acquisition. I can't ever see it.
I even heard dollar amounts.
What was the rumored amount?
I heard anywhere from 1.8 to 3 billion.
Yeah, that's too much for Sabre. I
So,
don't know.
but I heard it. I didn't hear it as much as I heard the Duetto Rainmaker thing, but I actually heard it a handful of times. Not from anyone that I go. Actually, had it been from the people I know who would know, I wouldn't have said it. Because they would have been like, "Damn it, Ed."
Yeah. Sabre's market cap as of today, 7.09 billion. That's half their market cap. I don't see it.
Let's not forget the
Interesting.
TravelClick Vantis or TravelClick VIP International. That was TravelClick doubling down, and it came out great for them. They were.
Let's not forget Thoma Bravo's investment into TravelClick for $900 million, which was double what every other investor was forecasting.
Yep.
Or valuing the company at.
So
I mean,
you never know.
It could happen. That would be as a publicly traded company, and Sabre and their board. That would be radical.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I know.
And
it was fun to do the mental exercise of
acquiring an organization where they do not have that core capability and history of being able to go migrate all the. Alex Alt had a great quote a couple of years ago that was Sabre was really, really good at buying stuff, but really bad at building stuff, which is a damning damning thing to say, but that is kind of their history. And
But I think that holds true. That
they
holds
gotta
true
build
for
it.
TravelClick too, though.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, Oracle, though, they build some stuff.
Really
but
good stuff. Yeah.
Really, really good stuff. And for Oracle, I really think it comes down to them just going, damn it, let's do it. Within the overall, how do you get, that platform to get some visibility where they just go, screw it, let's do it. And then
so how about you guys? Did you guys hear any juicy, fun rumors?
No, those are way better than I heard. I'll be honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I either talk to better liars or people who are in the know. I mean, I guess we'll find out, right?
That's right. Better informants than we do. I honestly, I didn't get to snooze as much as I wanted to.
The only one I heard was Flip2 was buying Salesforce. I thought that was a perfect fit.
Yeah, we got 3 new licenses.
That's funny. That's funny.
You heard it. It was true. We actually picked up 3 new licenses of Salesforce. So yeah.
So not a rumor. Confirmed.
Not a rumor. Yeah.
So what about new little tech companies?
I got to tell you, Robert, Monday night was a hoot for me because, and I talked to someone who you evidently were telling the same story after Monday night that I was, which was, it was hilarious that this was a meeting. It was a meeting of startups, but I brought hotels.
Right.
And
the startups did not talk to the hotels. They talk to each other. It's like, oh my God.
I brought my friends, who I happen to be friends with a lot of people in the hotel space, because I wanted to hang out with them, and it was probably the only chance I was going to get to see them. So I was like, hey, come out. It'll be fun. And, I thought it would be fun for the startups, and I'd be able to hear from my hotel friends what they thought of the startups, right? So I was like,
it was a great mix. It was a great mix. Major hotel group, niche, great luxury boutique hotel group, and casino group. Yep. Any of those startups could have learned from those 3 individuals a vast amount of information.
Like a mentor program for startups to learn how to sell.
Right. The only people who talked to them were me and Robert. And it was a great conversation. I mean, it was really engaging conversation.
Okay, so wait a second. Thinking that maybe they tried and we didn't notice because they couldn't get a word in edgewise.
Yeah, maybe you guys intimidated them.
Yeah, I don't think. No, probably not intimidation. Just like,
I would have been there, but I was too busy Ubering from one airport to the other to pick up my bags.
Yeah, because you missed. It was actually a really good time.
It was great.
We had a lot of fun conversation. Because also the people who are the hoteliers have been other things. Like one had worked at Hotwire in the early days. One was like HubX when Synixis bought HubX, and so that's really interesting. The other was MGM and had done a lot in MGM before she went to this new casino company. So these are people who have been in the architecture side of the business for a long time.
TripAdvisor.
The
guy who, remember when TripAdvisor added 240 different platforms? He did that.
Yeah, he did that. Yep.
Easy stuff.
Yeah, easy. Probably the only other person who's facing an implementation close to the same size as Tammy's. So that can kind of help you understand what he does now.
Oh, yeah.
So it was really funny because, the startups had a great opportunity to kind of, ask questions, talk to these people, because they're also the coolest people I know. Like, they're super open, super fun. They've been on both sides of the industry, they know the deal.
Resource, then they just blew it. That's tough. Wow.
Yeah. And it's funny, Robert, because I forget who I was telling, but they're like, yeah, Robert said the same thing, like that none of the startups. So you and I were like seeing this same exact thing, which was, holy smokes, such a valuable audience for these startups.
Oh, yeah.
But they learn from each other.
And people that you normally don't just run into. And these guys trying to go reach them and get to them any other way. There's no chance.
No.
Yeah. No, the show was good for us because Ed used our booth as a base camp. So any meetings that he had scheduled, he'd meet them at ours. So I got to talk to some interesting folks. Probably wouldn't have had to talk to him. I was like, we would commiserate initially on knowing Ed, and then we'd hit it off. We'd have that common ground.
It's a great bonding experience.
Yeah.
Like, complaining with someone who knows me about knowing me.
Yeah.
'Cause they'll be
That's
instantly friends with you.
Yeah, there were many people said I won't hold it against you. That was said multiple times.
So who were your? We talked about the real-time pest monitoring,
Yeah.
but other technologies that people liked or booths that you thought were kind of the new guys doing interesting stuff.
I
Favorite?
like Happy. I've already
Happy
mentioned
Cloud. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm bullish on them. I really like, and I've known about this before this show, but I really like where Navis is going on their data warehousing and data cleansing and all of that.
I didn't have a chance to talk to them. They were,
and it's
Yeah,
really,
I had a good talk with a couple of folks from there, and we've had a pass with them, but I think we're going to be reevaluating and seeing how we can integrate more with Navis, because they're definitely, I think they fixed a lot of the challenges they had, and they're doing some interesting stuff for sure, especially on the data side.
Yeah. So that was fun. I didn't have a lot of time. I actually had a lot of appointments. And it was kind of a wake up that, well, maybe not having a booth makes sense. And this is something I want to talk to Frank about. Frank needs to create another type of exhibit, because there's a lot of people there who can't justify a booth.
Yeah. Right.
Could spend something to be able to take legitimate meetings and maybe do some marketing around it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 it takes to be there.
Well, but it's weird. There was one that Snapshot. Dave Turnbull was there, and he had a couple people, but they didn't have a booth, and he was in some sort of show partner. And I don't know exactly.
I saw that. They were on the app, but because I want to go
on
talk
the
to
app
them
and
after
everything, but they didn't
I
have a
saw
booth.
the announcement. I want to go talk to them, and I was like, well, I don't know where to go.
I think the show. I have
don't
two
know.
pieces of commentary for Frank, which he's used to. He's known me forever. So as you know, even if you don't ask, I'm still going to tell you something. I think they need to organize the show floor by product categories. Because it's really tough. I mean, it's really tough that you have TV vendors completely surrounded by
It's never going to work, man, because they do this whole lottery system. So the people
based on history and how long
based on how many times long you've been there, you get points, and you get to pick where you're going to be first, second, third rounds.
Yeah,
it's like a draft.
But the show floor is such a mess now because there's so much tech in this space that you can't.
There's a lot of noise.
Yes,
actually, the noise to signal ratio is not good.
You're right.
Well, but the yesterday I had a meeting at 1:30, right? 30 minutes before the show ends. And there were guys that I had to go see. I had to go from 2:19 to 28:16 back to 16:35 because I literally had 30 minutes. I'm looking at 1 o'clock going, I got to stop by these two places.
Scheduling.
Yeah. Well, I probably could have, but but again, you're sitting there going, I got to talk to these guys.
All these vendors who pay all this money to have a booth and don't even put in their email signature what their booth number is and don't put it on their website anywhere.
Oh, wow.
It's such a missed opportunity.
Yep.
Wipe there, Mr. Ed.
But they should have they should no, literally.
We actually did put it on the website. It was the day after you said something, but we did.
No, you put it on the website, you do a little screenshot of
we do direct
the floor with an arrow, we are here sort of thing. That's really helpful stuff.
Yeah, and
I will say this: we had more foot traffic this year than I've ever had at High
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Hoteliers?
One of the companies I advise has been tracking booth traffic at High Tech for themselves over the years, and they just sent it to me, and I was taking a look at it. This year was one of the better years for them, so it was substantially better than Toronto.
Toronto was a dud, man. It was
substantially better than New Orleans, night and day better than Austin. Only slightly better than LA. Which was so now I'm back to
LA and Orlando are the two golden spots.
Yeah.
Those are always
you say that, except actually the Austin before LA. So the last Austin was 2011.
Right.
That was the last, like that was the last high point for them. So everything that they've gotten from high tech since has been a lesser number than the Austin 2011, which was actually better than the Orlando 2010. But the best one ever for them was the 2006 Minneapolis.
Which is where it is next year, right?
They're going Minneapolis. That was a great show. Yeah, that Minneapolis was a
when did they move Rock? Because it used to be on the Monday before, and now
they always move it. Now it's that kills. Well, and what area are they in? What area are they in is the key. Yeah,
right. The first year of it was New Orleans, and and I got to be honest with you, that's I will not buy a full exhibit at either until they fix it, until they put it back, because it screws everything up, and it makes it impossible to be a vendor at both shows unless you're a gigantic company that just has endless forces.
Yeah, what it did to us was it just created a crunch at the end of the day, you know, because people came out of Rock and wanted to run through the show floor real quick. So we were backed up, you know, couldn't talk to people.
Oh, really? Well, no, but that Rock wasn't over. Rock ran until 7 o'clock. So those people were bagging out probably on the other debate, right?
Yeah,
the second debate.
Yeah.
Because again, Holly's got. I heard really negative feedback on the debate, though, of moving people around and stuff like that. It was, I normally don't hear negative stuff, but I heard
to the feedback I heard universally, so that Holly wouldn't feel like I was bagging Rock. I mean, because I heard the same like the feedback I gave, I heard it universally about the educational. But I will say the exact opposite of that. In that negative feedback, every one of those people said, however, the exhibitor meetings were fantastic because they were super educational. Like, and so that makes me feel really positive that.
Oh, you mean the breakouts?
No, the vendors. The like going.
Oh, just meeting exhibitors. Just the talking to the.
And it was solution based selling, not
right.
Which that makes me feel really good for the fact that maybe everyone is starting to realize they need to up their game and educate this industry. So
well, and I think one of the challenges is HSMAI generally tries not to put a vendor on stage, right? They try to keep it all.
Such a miss.
Yeah,
it's such a miss because actually, I got to be honest with you, some of the smartest people in this industry are on the vendor side of the world.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And you have to have the people.
Right? You got to have parameters, right? You're not promoting yourself. You're not selling.
Right.
And you tell them we've got an air horn. You start selling. We fire it. You're embarrassed on stage. Everybody laughs at you, and to try, test us. Right?
Yeah.
And they won't. Or you're picking the wrong people to be up there. Right. Which these guys should all know everybody and what they're gonna do. Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
because man,
what
there
about
are
so happy people like Happy Cloud, who's in there getting a lot of folks hopping into the services, layer integration space. SiteMinder, I didn't get into it, but they've announced something.
I spoke to them.
Snapshot.
So you missed that part. I spoke to SiteMinder, and they have their head right about it.
That's good.
Yeah, I was actually pretty excited about it. We're going to continue looking into it because there needs to be multiple ones anyways. They can't just be one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it's it's a new
one that I liked, which actually was my 1:30 meeting, who I didn't really run a class because it was recommended by actually Philip Wolf, who founded Focusrite, said I should go look at these guys. It's a Swedish company called Zaplocks.
Yes.
Right. And it's like this little, these guys are doing it right. Let me tell you. And the CEO was great. He goes, we are a really boring company. and so, which is normally not what he goes, but they're doing mobile key, PCI compliant payments, GDPR guest identity, integrations with all the major guys. I mean, they're doing all the really important hard foundational stuff first instead of minimum viable product. And now we don't talk to Agilysys or Oracle. We'll get around.
They are going after the enterprise client. I mean, and I got to tell you, that was my strategy at Easy Yield. I was the only platform that could do an enterprise client, and it's because of all the boring, really expensive background stuff that made that possible. And it's not sexy, and it's not something you get to talk to a lot of people about. But man, when you get to talk to the right person, they're so appreciative of.
And these guys. These guys were, you know, their board. One of their founders is, you know, a guy with Ericsson, right? So deep mobile thinking on the future of, you know, of just the whole platform. And it was like, wow. And they were talking to the account or the prospect they were talking to before me. Yeah, I wasn't really listening in on, but you could tell. Actually, I couldn't really hear exactly what they were saying. But these guys were engaged. I mean, they were just like, really? Oh, you know, they were that high conversion potential of a really, really nasty, ugly, complicated client, right? It's like, wow, that's very impressive.
Yeah,
very
it's
impressive.
smart, because and it's easy on the surface to overlook them, right? Because they're throwing buzzwords around, right? Like keyless entry and GDPR and stuff like that. But when you actually talk to the guys and look at what they're doing, they've figured out.
Oh yeah, they've got an SDK. They introduced a low end. Hey, you don't want anything, but yeah, you can do this. They've got their premium product, which will go.
And their approach is, I'm not all the solutions. I'm a piece of the ecosystem, and I'm open, and I can connect with everything that you already do. That's that's the way
I was talking to him about just strategically. I'm like, oh my God. And it's like, you guys are doing it the right way of just focusing on the blocking and the tackling sort of thing. Get the basics down, and then you can go do, wow, you're authenticating the guest identity. You could do some stuff with that sort of thing. Yeah, you know, you've got PCI compliant. You can buy anything through the hotel app now. Wow, that would be kind of nice. Yeah, they're pretty.
Did you guys talk to any of the 20X startups? Was there anything that stood out to you?
No, but you know who? I did see someone I know went to Beekeeper, and I had run into her.
And I want to learn Beekeeper too.
I want to learn more about Beekeeper because I actually like.
Yeah, I've got some of their collateral. The concept's pretty neat, for sure.
Well, I went to you guys, lazy guys, I went to the 7 a.m. breakfast.
I couldn't because I had a breakfast with a potential client.
Ed was sleeping in.
I was sleeping in too.
His client was his pillow.
But there's someone we're going to follow up on. And the guy that I talked to was I had met him at an HSMI event before. He was ex-Expedia, and he's been on the hotel side before. So that'll be interesting.
They've got Connie Reams, who's been around.
Yeah, and I've known Connie forever, and I ran into her, and so I'm going to follow up with Connie.
Very interesting sort of thing. So what they're basically doing, the core business is, I would say, it's a mobile app that kind of integrates your intranet and kind of all your employee sort of stuff, right? All the ERP stuff you can kind of do. Now, it was interesting. They had 60 hotels, and I don't think Connie necessarily anticipated they were going to say it, because I think it caught them by surprise. They kind of said, oh, no, we don't let employees have their own devices at work. Right. So this is all this, and they had 94% compliance of the employees, like in Teams, doing stuff outside, and they were using like little iPods or whatever for people to go update for the housekeepers on the job. And I'm sitting there going, wait a second, they're bringing their own device. You can do some really interesting stuff of, it's it's geofenced. When you come in, boom, the apps are live, you do stuff, you're integrated, and what doesn't, no. You're out. It's not, you're gone, or you get kind of the intranet type stuff and what's going on in the postings, things like that. No, they can do some really, really interesting stuff, and it's not just hospitality. They do all sorts of industries, but they've got a huge, really high ceiling. I think they can.
Yeah, they're
a lot of potential.
A long way.
They're pretty cool. I've been following them, and they've made a lot of good hires too. They've got
marketplace. They've got a marketplace. They've got all sorts of pretty robust API. They can go really big, but it doesn't look like there are a lot of hospitality, really examples and case studies that they can go.
Yeah, I think they're new to the industry. Did you talk to Jibe Stream at all? Did you talk to those guys?
Oh, what do they do?
So again, it's coming from other industries, but they do visualization of the property or any kind of event space, and then they basically give you SDKs for whatever you want to do with that data. So their user cases, yeah, it's mapping, right? So they'll take your blueprints for your property, and they'll create a visual map and then allow you to interact with it however you want. So that could be real-time pest monitoring, but it could also be, in the case of us, we're looking at them with our app for doing things like at check-in, selecting your room. So there's a lot of potential, but I saw a few people like that are creating a piece of the ecosystem, right? And it's all open, so anyone can integrate. So they were kind of interested. And then there was another one that I talked to that it was like it was a kid that had come up with this concept because his buddy was in the industry and had said there was a problem. And it was basically a one-button gadget that goes on the tray, the room service tray, and it ties to an app. So basically, you press a button on it when it's delivered, and it knows it's live, and it knows where it is. And then when the guest is done, they just press the button on the tray. And they can either leave it outside or leave it in the room. And,
that's so smart.
And there's an app that tracks the time that it's taken so they can monitor efficiencies. So real simple gadget, really cheap. And their business model is smart, so they're not selling it. It's a SaaS model. So you get the hardware and the software as a monthly fee.
That's smart.
Couple of bucks a month per room, something like that, and it scales based on property size.
I love solution-based companies because that'll open the door to them to build other things, and hopefully they do build other things because it's not enough.
Right.
Like that won't be an investment-grade business.
And I was asking him about the size and stuff. It was like one kid, he'd hired a couple of developers abroad, they're manufacturing in China. His dad is the sales guy.
Nice.
Real family-run business. But I need to look up what they were called. But it was that was one I was just like, that's innovation, that's entrepreneurship. I really like that. And then there was another one I talked to. Again, I don't remember the name, but it was like they built skills on top of Alexa for hospitality. So I stood there and I'm like, did you not just see the announcement that Amazon's kind of done this? So, and I was trying to figure out if they were using blueprints or if they built custom skills, kind of talked around it. So I couldn't really see.
Yeah. If you're bitten by that announcement, you kind of got what you deserved. Because if your only part of your business is doing something that any developer could do in a few minutes, you're asking for it.
Yeah. Well, they told me they've built beyond what Echo Hospitality can do, but didn't give me specifics, so we'll see. So I don't know who won. I didn't see the voting to see.
I think Beekeeper won.
Did it?
They?
Okay.
I saw something.
There was another one. What's the other one I talked to? They're coming from the cruise line industry, and again, it was a visualization of the property, but they put RFID tags on certain waypoints throughout the property to force, the people that are doing maintenance or whatever, they have to check the like fire extinguishers a certain number of times a year, whatever. So they force people to go through these certain waypoints and scan their RFID to prove that they've done their job. That they've monitored whatever it is.
That's I like that. That's a really good idea.
When I ran.
Hey, gents, before we get too deep, I have to run. It was awesome hanging out with both of you this week.
Yeah, we had fun.
Yeah. And you can find me flip.to or Edward St. Ange on social media. See you guys.
See you, buddy.
Bye.
He had a bowel movement or something. That was a quick prompt jump off. I don't know.
That was a quick. It's like a client call. We can go.
Yeah.
He's better off. Rabid sales mode.
That's right.
Yeah. Poor Edit Flip to talking to all those people, not getting any nibbles, being rejected continuously, and probably somebody he met with a business card.
Yeah. Probably
called them accidentally, thinking they were calling somebody else.
Yeah.
They wanted the real-time pest monitoring. They thought it was Flip2 was the name of the company, and he's jumping on the opportunity.
They're doing a pivot right now. They're going away from
the real
advocacy stuff
he had
all into
sent an
real-time pest
email like,
monitoring.
yeah, pivot from this advocacy thing to real-time pest monitoring so before the window closed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, there were a couple others. The dot C maybe dot .cy. It was kind of interesting. They're using Microsoft's Dynamics.
Dynamics. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And basically kind of doing a do-it-yourself
build your own
marketing
solution.
text.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was pretty clever.
There's a market for it. I mean, they're not going to take corner of the market, but
but it was cool. It was innovative, and you go, it's a robust. It's kind of like somebody going, well, I kind of equate it to Libra on demand, right? Mm-hmm. Where Greg went in there and said, Salesforce, that's a pretty good. This looks like it has some legs to it. Let's go build some.
Let's build some tools on top. Yeah. And we actually had a client. It's a 15 property group, large resorts that has at peak probably 120 reservationists during the peak season. Wow. And they just built their own call center app on Dynamics. They hired someone to help them, but they built it to their spec and the way they wanted. They tied it into a phone switch, and then we actually embedded our guest desk booking engine within the Dynamics tool so that the reservationist doesn't need two screens. They never need to touch the PMS. Wow. They're all in one single application, and it was all built in Microsoft Dynamics. So definitely possible. I mean, I don't think average guy can do it, but with a tool like this, maybe.
Yeah, and they had a lot of modules and things like that. And again, once you get kind of all those, categories kind of taken care of the modules, you go, wait a second, can you enhance this and add some field time? Yeah. It's like, we got a platform that can interface with other stuff, and here are the data elements.
There's a lot of people aren't going to want to look at that kind of solution, because
right. It's
level of technology on staff, but I think for those more savvy groups that want a little more flexibility, it's a great concept.
Well, and it was interesting. One of the hotel, not a major hotel group, I'd say, they're kind of in that second tier. They aren't real small, they aren't real big, but they've got a great group of properties. Mm-hmm. These guys used to be a client of one of the major kind of digital marketing, all integrated platforms, right? CRS, digital, everything on one spot. Mm-hmm. And they jumped off of it, right? They went to kind of an open source CMS platform. Then they're doing a bunch of stuff themselves, right? And they love it because they're kind of mixing and matching, and they aren't just beholden to this one kind of behemoth, product plan. And they love it. So for somebody like that, I think there's a real opportunity for those guys. Did you see Triple Seat? I just like the guys because they had the Airstream trailer. Did you see
really?
They had an Airstream trailer, and picnic tables out front. They're doing some a very great booth, right? I just go, wow, this is
eye-catching,
But they were doing group sales and event management kind of for small properties. So for the guys who can't afford the Delphis and all this big stuff, really nice,
that's pretty smart.
Fast model, affordable, going, hey, we can run these weddings through, and here's the little group block, and let's do this stuff. It was like, oh yeah, that's fantastic.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So good. I'll post those on Facebook for some of the cool thing. We aren't mentioning fuel travel. I mean, my God, how did you get the quad booth, the triple?
We had a 500 by 500. It was, dominated the show floor really. Next year I talked to Lauren. I think what we're going to do next year is, because we had a 10 by 10, and I think we're going to a 10 by 20 next year. And part of it, we're going to put a table and chairs and just live stream this show, do a crossover between the podcast in This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing, and just stream the whole event from there and just do interviews and throw it out to vendors. If you have something interesting to talk to.
Live stream the conversations of your potential clients and you and all of their challenges that they're trying to solve, all the complaints of their current vendors, why they want to get off of that to work with you. That would be fascinating.
I don't know if we'll go that far, but we'll have some kind of constant live streaming throughout the whole show next year.
And Lauren can find some technology where there can be live bidding. Don't let Fuel get this agreement. Hey, you've been on the Come on.
We'll have
But
an
just-
auction.
But you could get all the data on it and see
That's
what
right.
was going on. So you could
I
get
run
all
it through
the
my
analytics.
blockchain and my AI, and it will be great.
There
Will
you
be
go.
good.
So,
Yeah.
well, good. So, Stuart, if people want to find you, what should they do?
They should go onto the internet, this wonderful invention by Al
Really?
Gore. Yeah, and they
Yeah.
should type in fuel travel, and they will
Or
find
just
us.
fuel, and see what
Yeah.
comes up.
If you type in fuel, you might get a few red herrings, but if you type in fuel travel or fuel travel
You guys aren't trying
podcast,
to optimize. You aren't trying to optimize.
we have not. That's not one of our target
Just the
keywords.
high level
Type in
term
fuel.
fuel.
Yeah,
so-
I need fuel. That doesn't show us. But if you do fuel hotel, fuel travel, fuel, I don't know, Stewart fuel, that might even work. But yeah, fuel travel on Twitter, fueltravel.com is our website, and then check out the podcast, fueltravel.com/podcast, or wherever you get podcasts.
Hey, that's great.
And what about you, Robert?
Can find me at Robert K. Cole on social media or rockcheetah.com. So
Sweet. Well, thank you everyone for listening to the show, watching the show. Hopefully
Hey.
we did a good job of recapping real-time pest control. One or two.
we did.
Yeah.
Please, the future, and if we only, I can't post
Future
the link. I
hospitality.
can't remember the name of the company. But
Yeah. Well, if
We'll try
they're
to figure that
listening
out.
to the show, maybe we should have them on, and they could tell us all more about the technology. It'd be great.
exactly, or maybe we'll just dedicate. Once we figure that out, we'll dedicate a full show to it.
There you go. That'll work. I think we pretty much did today, almost.
That's right. Exactly. Okay. Good
All right.
stuff.
See you guys next time.
Bye bye. Did you successfully kill the show?
I'm trying to figure out how to do it. It's not.
I don't know.